The thrill of gambling is the opportunity to hit big, and the Kansas City Chiefs won the jackpot. However, playing with fire can get your ass burnt. After a decade of poor to middling seasons, Kansas City had already struck gold and entered a new era of success in the early 2010s, led by quarterback Alex Smith. He'd reached heights that the franchise hadn't seen in years, or ever, and was considered by some as a Chiefs legend. So how exactly does a player of that stature get attached to a deal that altered NFL history? The Chiefs' decision to trade Alex Smith was a big deal. Apologies for the quick interruption, but trust me, you want to hear what I gotta say. We have a Patreon. If you aren't subscribed, you might want to change that. Over there, you can find tons of exclusive stuff every Monday, like episode extensions, our podcast, and so much more. So treat yourself and sign up. But for now, let's get back to it. You may have noticed I didn't mention a certain someone's name, but he ain't the boogeyman, so let's address it now. Some may know this dude as the guy who throws the Taylor Swift's boo, while others simply know him as the multi-time Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes. In 2017, with Smith still a member of the team, the Chiefs made a bold move to trade up and draft Mahomes. The organization hadn't selected a quarterback in the first round since the early 80s, and in a package deal that included future draft picks, the trade signified that the franchise viewed Mahomes highly. Which felt like a strange move, considering experts had credited Smith's stability as the reason the Chiefs transformed into a success. Smith was proven. Mahomes still had questions about his game. Was winning not good enough for KC? Did his tight end not being attached to a massive pop star at the time become part of his ultimate demise? Obviously kidding on that last bit, but Smith had a bit of a roller coaster journey before joining the Chiefs. As a sophomore at the University of Utah, Smith earned the starting job after then quarterback Brett Elliott went down with an injury and never looked back, going on to be drafted first overall by the San Francisco 49ers in 2005. Smith went through 8 intense seasons in the Bay Area, battling through claims of being a bust in his early years, dealing with inconsistency at the head coach spot, reinventing himself as a top QB under head coach Jim Harbaugh, and leading SF to the conference championship in the 2011 season, all to be ultimately replaced the following year when he suffered a concussion and lost his job to Colin Kaepernick. Smith had performed well pre-concussion, and many journalists believe he still deserved to be a starter in the league, but Smith's future with the Niners always seemed shaky. In 2013, Smith got his chance to prove his worth in a trade that saw him land in Kansas City. Historically, the Chiefs weren't really known as a franchise where quarterbacks thrive. The organization's plan had revolved around acquiring backups and turning them into starters, with Matt Castle being their latest victim in failed experiments. However, journalists expected a different outcome with Smith. Before acquiring Smith, KC also hired head coach Andy Reid in 2013 to help the franchise move away from its losing ways. Reid came strapped with a strong track record of developing quarterbacks, and journalists believed the Reid and Smith pairing would break the cycle of poor luck under center in KC. Their first year proved to be a hit as Smith led the Chiefs to a hot undefeated start through 9 games, as experts praised his play under Reid. They went on to lose in the wildcard round of the playoffs that season, blowing a first-half lead in a tight, high-scoring shootout, but the blueprint had been set. With Reid calling the shots and Smith as the signal caller, the Chiefs were set up for ultimate success going forward. Something they certainly achieved, but mostly in their regular season. As the years passed and KC continued to make the playoffs, the franchise became synonymous with early exits, and Smith got hit with the scarlet letter of being labeled as a game manager. It's a bit of a buzzword term that journalists and fans alike have attached to quarterbacks who are thought to have limited capabilities and do what they can do to get victories by making as few mistakes as possible, aka good, but not great. As Smith continued to stack wins in the regular season, questions and concerns from the media about his ability to lead the Chiefs in the playoffs began to mount. Smith himself was aware of the pressure as he and the Chiefs won the AFC West in 2016, earning a first-round bye in the playoffs. Statistically, Smith's postseason numbers were actually quite good, with a passer rating among the best in the league. He tossed clean games, but just couldn't win. A victory in the 2016 divisional round would have landed Smith back in the conference championship and potentially quieted his doubters, but a 16-18 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers only led journalists to double down on claims he was incapable of winning the big game. It seemed that the Chiefs as an organization felt the same way. Of course, it was something KC brass wouldn't publicly admit, but behind the scenes, Kansas City reportedly believed they had reached their ceiling with Smith. It's like having a significant other that you rock with heavy, but just didn't see as wifey or hubby material. Mahomes was clearly KC's new belle of the ball as Reid gushed over his abilities, and some experts believe the Chiefs would turn to their new bae sooner rather than later. If that were the case, Kansas City had some options they could explore. Smith was in his early 30s at the time with 2 years remaining on his contract, but the franchise had the flexibility to release him without taking a huge hit. $3.6 million is nothing to blink at, but if the Chiefs felt that confident in turning the keys over to Mahomes, it would be the more financially savvy move rather than letting Smith play out his contract where he was set to earn 30 of them fangs. However, releasing Smith came with risks. Kansas City clearly had confidence in Mahomes, but history wasn't on the organization's side when it came to drafting quarterbacks. By cutting Smith, the team would be losing a reliable starter, getting nothing in return, and would be left to depend on the player that journalists viewed as a boom or bust prospect. If they wanted something back, KC could have explored trade options for Smith before the upcoming season, but that came with its complications. The Chiefs' initial decision to draft Mahomes shocked the league, and while mortgaging their future appeared to be a massive gamble, franchises across the NFL weren't prepared to load Kansas City with more ammo if Mahomes were to pan out, leaving the Chiefs the option to do, well, nothing. With Smith under contract for a couple of more years, the Chiefs had time to afford for Mahomes to develop while Smith remained the starter. It's a strategy that other teams have implemented and found success. While Reid spoke glowingly of Mahomes, his emphasis on the quarterback's potential impact seemed to be geared toward the future. Reid never believed Mahomes would be ready from the get-go, and the process required patience, pointing to Smith still being the guy for the time being. With Smith under center in 2017, the Chiefs experienced a turbulent season teetering the line between flawless and mid. The veterans sliced up defenses and steered the Chiefs to an undefeated 5-0 start, shaking off that nasty label from the past and played his way into early MVP contention. Journalists wondered if Smith's phenomenal performance altered the whole QB of the future thing with the young rookie Mahomes. Now, some of those tunes changed when the Chiefs hit a midseason slump and media members called for a new arm. But Smith flipped the switch and finished the year strong, delivering the best season of his career as he led the Chiefs to their first ever repeat division title. It wasn't just his play, but teammates and journalists praised his poise and leadership for steering the ship and getting the Chiefs back on track. Media members believed there was no rush for KC to move on from him, but if they did, Smith's performance had certainly upped his trade value. As the Chiefs clinched the division early that season, Reid rested his starters for the final game, giving Mahomes the opportunity to start, and despite an impressive showing by the young QB, media members stood strong that Smith should remain the guy going forward. After a fantastic season, Smith had the shot to cap off the year and put all the playoff talk behind him if he and the Chiefs rattled off some postseason wins. Damn! As KC fell to the Tennessee Titans in the wildcard round, the Chiefs openly seemed ready to move on from Smith. It wasn't that the Chiefs were actively shopping their QB, but the going rate for quarterbacks that offseason was at a premium, and after seeing their first rounder light it up during Week 17, Kansas City felt they had to at least listen to offers. After a season where Smith held the league's top passer rating, the calls came in plenty. The immediate frontrunners to land Smith's talents were the Arizona Cardinals and Cleveland Browns. Arizona wasn't a surprise as the team originally made a run for Smith when he was a Niner, but with their quarterback Carson Palmer retiring at season's end, acquiring Smith made even more sense this time around for the vet to lead a new era of Cardinals football. The Browns had the leg up. Cleveland's new GM John Dorsey had seen Smith's development up close and personal as he originally orchestrated the trade to get the QB to KC when he held general manager duties for the Chiefs 5 years prior. It would be tough to fault Dorsey if he followed the same blueprint that saw an immediate change in fortune for the Chiefs. Besides the needed QB for Cleveland, as rookie quarterback DeShone Kizer struggled mightily the previous season, the Browns seemed to have the most at their disposal to offer Kansas City with the ability to outbid any team. However, Smith didn't seem too thrilled about the possibility of going to those losers in Cleveland and preferred to land with a winning franchise. Ultimately, the Chiefs kicked off the 2018 offseason with a blockbuster deal that sent Smith to Washington in exchange for a future third-round pick and cornerback Kendall Fuller, a player who was key in getting the deal done as KC viewed him highly. The trade came as a surprise as Washington was at a standstill with their own quarterback Kirk Cousins, ultimately deciding to part ways. And while Cleveland appeared to be the logical landing spot for Smith, journalists believe that the Chiefs went against the trade in respects to their former quarterback's wishes and keeping him out of the same conference. The Chiefs decided that Smith's greatness under center wasn't good enough and pulled off the ultimate gamble as the franchise went on to lay their claim as a dynasty with Mahomes. In Washington, Smith suffered a gruesome injury that changed the rest of his career. Now it's easy to say the Chiefs made the right call. We've seen the results. However, while someone steps to the craps table with the optimism to roll 7, you could just as easily end up with snake eyes. The odds weren't on Kansas City's side. But they bet the house, and their role to trade Alex Smith ended up being a very, very big deal. Thanks for watching this episode of Big Deal. If you enjoyed it, you're in luck because we have plenty more amazing content right here on YouTube. Or if you hated it, feel free to just keep hate watching our stuff, but make sure to finish it all the way through. It's good for numbers. Okay, bye now.